Yeah, that's cool. What kind of stuff do I need? I've just like stolen my housemate's like paper.
I guess I should say that, yeah. I'm going to keep it like quick and easy. So basically just like regular standard printer paper, pens, pencils, scissors, a ruler. If you have it, like a needle and thread, but I'm going to teach a few different types of methods of making zines. So
Yeah,
it's
definitely don't have needle and thread.
yeah. Perfect. Hello to everyone else who has joined. I'm going to give it another couple of minutes before I like jump into anything so others can trickle in. Yeah, I encourage you, if you like want some tea or some coffee or a snack, like feel free to grab something. This is like super casual space. For supplies, the main thing we'll need is like printer paper, pen, pencils, markers, scissors, ruler. If you have a needle and thread, that would be great, but it's not necessary. Yeah, I'll probably start to jump in about 2 or 3 minutes, and then whoever else trickles in as we go will pick up as we go, I guess. Yeah, at any time, like feel free to, I think you can use like the raise the hand feature if you have questions, or if I'm talking too quickly, which I sometimes do when I'm a little nervous. Feel free to just like flag me down and be like, hey, you're talking too fast, or can you go over this step again? That is perfectly fine, and I encourage questions. Yeah, so I'll give it another minute and then we'll jump right in. So
thank you so much for being here today, Alyssa. We're really excited for this workshop.
oh, thanks for joining in. I am excited. I'm nervous, but like excited. It's been a little while since I've taught a workshop, so I am looking forward to like jumping back into it. I always love doing these things.
If we just wait a few more minutes, I literally only just shut the webinar from the previous keynote, so there might still be some people mingling and making their way here.
Yeah, for sure.
Do we need any paper or anything? Sorry, you might have said that before I got here.
No worries. The biggest thing you're gonna need is just like standard printer paper, a pen and pencil, scissors if you have them, a ruler if you have it. If you have a needle and thread, that would be great, but it's not necessary. I'm gonna teach a few different binding styles. But yeah, that's kind of like the main things you'll need. You're welcome to grab like anything else you may want to use to make a zine, like collage material, paint, pens, pencils, color pencils, crayons, pretty much like anything that sparks inspiration. So also feel free to like grab a snack, have a tea, have a coffee. I like to keep workshops super casual, comfy spaces. Yeah. So I guess I'll give it till maybe 5 after, and then I'll jump in. As I was saying before, like if you have questions at any time, please feel free to raise your hand or speak up or type in the chat. I have the chat open as well. Also, if I talk a little quickly, like flag me down, because I tend to do that when I'm nervous. But yeah, I'm excited. It's exciting seeing like the participants number like slowly increase. I'm just like, yes, more and more people are trickling in. This is fun.
My partner just very kindly brought me like a ruler and some pens and stuff.
Oh, perfect.
I can't find a ruler. Is that going to be a problem?
No, like I said, I'm gonna keep things super casual. What I will do as well is I have like some digital templates that I am more than happy to email to anybody who is interested. Once we kind of like get the ball rolling, I'll enter my information in the chat. And yeah, like feel free to reach out if you would like digital templates, because I have them and I'm more than happy to share. So but yeah, I'll kind of like teach everyone how to make their own templates and then how to like make the zines from templates and all that fun stuff. So I guess I will start. I will
Do you
first
want me to introduce you, or do you want to just introduce yourself?
Oh, you are more than welcome to introduce me. That's
I have a small thing prepared, if that is okay.
That is perfect.
So today, obviously, we're very lucky to have a workshop with Alyssa Pisciotto. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your surname right. Who is a queer artist based in Toronto in Canada. She graduated with a BFA from the Ontario, I can't talk at this time of the day, College of Art and Design in 2016, and her practice consists primarily of painting, textile work, and printmaking. Zine making is also a large part of her practice, and she's passionate about sharing this knowledge with all of us today.
Perfect. So I would also like to start with a small land acknowledgement. That's something I try and put into my practice, seeing as I am on land that is not originally mine. So I would like to acknowledge that I'm on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, as well as the Wendat peoples. Takaranto, also known as Toronto, is covered by Treaty 13, which was signed between the Mississauga of the Credit. Yeah, so as you guys heard, my name is Alyssa. And yeah, I'm going to teach you guys about zines today. So I thought I'd start with just like a small basic like introduction to what a zine is for those of you who don't know. So basically a zine is like a small self-published, self-circulated piece of media. It can be in the style of poetry or comics or art or pretty much like anything that you want to circulate on a small scale. Zines have definitely always kind of been associated with like underground culture and people on the margins. And so, you know, you see a lot of stuff that is based around like feminism and political issues and like super popular within queer culture. And yeah, they're just like a really cool way of being able to get your thoughts and your art out there on a self-publishing level. Yeah, the one little cool tidbit that I like about zines is they actually started within the sci-fi world in kind of the 40s. So people would kind of like put together these little zines and stick them with sci-fi magazines. So zine is kind of like short for magazine, if you kind of didn't make that association. So I think that's like a fun little tidbit. So they've been around for quite a while. But yeah, they're usually, I think, technically, if you want to get technical with the definition, a zine is something with under 1,000 copies. But I feel like in today's age, like the definition of zine has kind of expanded to so much to anything that is just like a small publication. Yeah, so that's kind of like a very, very condensed brief history of what a zine is. But yeah, zines can be kind of like anything. I definitely have done stuff that is bordering what some may consider book arts. And then you can have like basic photocopied zines, and you can do digital zines, which is something I think is very cool with like the advancement of technology. Yeah, so today I will be teaching 3 different methods of making a zine. Hopefully I'll have enough time to do that. And then once I've kind of like shown you guys how to make a zine, we'll jump into like actually making something. Before I get into that though, I'm going to do like a shameless self-plug here. So I've actually started something called the Queer Zine Archive. It's a project I started last year, And basically it's an archive of zines that celebrates queerness. So yes, anything you guys make, or if you want more information, I'm more than happy to share that. Submissions are like open to anybody. Basically just like if you're a queer artist or if your zine revolves around queerness, like I would love to have it in the archive. So yeah, before I show some examples and jump in, I'm just gonna type in my information. Oh, I don't have Twitter. I do have Instagram though. I haven't jumped on the Twitter bandwagon, but I'll put in like all of my information in the chat, and yeah, like feel free to, after the workshop, like reach out if you have questions, or if you're like looking for the template I had mentioned, like I'm more than happy to send anything or answer questions as best as I can. So bear with me here while I type this out. So my personal or like main art practice Instagram is that glitter chick. And then I am also oh, thank you. Yes, I love sparkles. Some of my thesis work was like purely glitter, and that's kind of when I started an Instagram, and I was like, this is fitting. You can also find me at Queer Zine Archive. And then the email you guys are more than welcome to email will be queerzinearchive@gmail.com. So yeah, like I said, if you want like templates or have questions after this, or if you'd like to submit to the archive, like shoot me either a DM or an email, and I'm more than happy to continue the chat there. So now that I have like shamelessly self-plugged that, let's get started into zines. So the 3 different styles of zines I'm going to kind of teach you guys today are what I like to call the no bind or the no sew poster method, which basically just involves paper folding. The second method is called a pamphlet stitch, or a very basic saddle stitch, which involves a little bit of sewing, but like it's pretty straightforward and pretty easy, I promise. And then if we have time, the last one is an accordion fold, which is pretty funky and it's very straightforward. So I figured if we have time, I'll throw that in. If not, it's probably easy enough to figure out on your own without a full tutorial. So let's see, I usually work with 2 cameras, but I'm having some technical difficulties today, so I apologize for like not having an aerial view. But yeah, here's an example of a no sew. So I don't know if you can see on the spine, like you're not going to see any staples or binding or anything. Basically, oh my gosh, you can't even see what I'm doing. Sorry, guys. So the way you fold your paper kind of creates the book. And when you open it up, this one doesn't have a poster on the inside, but often people will put like a poster on the reverse side. So yeah, so it's basically just like folding and cutting your paper. So it's a self-contained binding. And then the next one would be a pamphlet saddle stitch. So I don't know, actually, this is a better example. So as you can see, there's actual like stitching along the edge of the book. Let's see. So this one you would actually sew, and this one is multiple leaves of paper that you combined and then sew together to create your book. You can also do this just with like a stapler as well. It doesn't have to be sewn. I like to add stitching just because I feel like it adds a little extra something to it. And then this is an example of an accordion fold. So it's basically just like a single sheet of paper. You can actually kind of like make these as long as you want. You just have to laminate your 2 sheets of paper together. So I think this is like kind of a fun style to play with, because you can make like really tiny stuff. You can make like excessively long zines. It lends itself to like a lot of experimentation. So yeah, I guess let's get started with the no sew method. So bear with me here. So I have made a template and I will kind of walk you through making this template. Hopefully is everything backwards for you guys when I'm showing in this view? No? Okay, perfect. I was worried about that. I was like, oh no, everything's gonna be backwards. So for the no-sew poster, you will get a cover, a front cover, a back cover, and 6 inner pages. So when you're kind of composing your content, you kind of want to always keep in mind how many pages your method of making is going to lend. So you only have about 6 pages of content, but the cool thing about this is you have the whole back side that you can like make a poster on. I've also seen ones where people have made like a reversible zine. So the story kind of like continues in a circular method if you like flip the zine inside out, which is like a really cool idea. I have not done that myself yet, but it's like, hey, this is going somewhere. So to make the template, which I will have you guys do, you're going to want to basically measure out margins along the edge of your paper. Your margins should be about 1/4 of an inch, or let me see, what would that translate into centimeters? My gosh. Or about 1 centimeter. You're going to want to leave a margin because when you're printing, you want to make sure none of your content is cut off. I have made that mistake the hard way. I always forget about like printer's margins. So I always give myself about 1/4 of an inch or 1 centimeter just to make sure that nothing is getting cut off. So basically what I like to do is just like lightly with pencil is I'll draw that margin on my master copy. Yeah. So I will give you guys a moment to do that. Do I have any questions so far? Perfect. Okay. And then once you have your margins done, I like to just fold in kind of the divisions to just like rough out where I know the pages will fall. So basically I like to just fold my paper in half, what we call hamburger style. So like folding it in half portrait ways, I guess. And then you're going to want to fold it in half hamburger again, so that you have kind of a 1/4 page size. And then you're going to fold it in half a 3rd time so that you have basically 1/8 of a page size. And then I really like to like crease in my folds just so I can kind of see the division of my pages. And then for your template, I would say just go over in a different colored pen kind of along your fold lines. So you will have one line kind of going across the center of your page. Oh, oh no, I'm sorry. Am I like out of camera, or is there something funky with my camera going on? Let's see, maybe I'll hold it a little closer. Hopefully that's a bit better. Uh-oh. Okay. Am I freezing for anybody else, or? Okay. Hopefully it keeps unfreezing for you. Okay, perfect. Okay. Oh yeah, of course. So for the folds, basically I like to fold it in half like this, and then in half again, and then in half again. So basically, you're just gonna fold it in half 3 times, kind of going in that like hamburger or portrait mode. So you want to end up with something this size. Perfect. So for your template, once you have your folds in, I would just go over with a pen to kind of like solidify where you know the lines will be. I don't know, hopefully you can see the green on camera. So basically you'll have one fold line across the landscape of your paper, and then 3 fold lines like vertically. And then from there, this is where you're going to want to pay attention to kind of your page placement. So I kind of like to think that it kind of numbers itself in a circle. So it will start with your back cover in the bottom right hand corner. Or actually, well, if you're looking at it, it would be your bottom left hand corner. And then it moves to your front cover. And then you want to kind of move in a circle. So it will be page 1, page 2, page 3, 4, 5, and 6. One helpful hint that I always try to need to remember is your top will be upside down in comparison to the bottom. So if your paper is in front of you, the bottom closest to you will always be right side up. And then the pages above will be flipped, because when you fold it, it'll like write itself in that way. So once you have kind of your page layout thought of, you're going to want to make your master copy. And then before you do any type of cutting, I would make copies of your zine first, just because I find like copying your master copy, if it has any cuts in it, is a little hard. So once you have your zine copies printed, what you're going to want to do is cut along where I've kind of drawn the pink dotted line. Let's see, it's this side there, which is basically along this center line, but you want to start from the first fold line and go to the 3rd fold line. You don't want to cut from edge to edge, because then you'll have 2 pieces of paper. So basically you just kind of want like a cut in the middle. Perfect. Yeah, my little tip and trick is to fold it in half and then just kind of like snip along that line there. Perfect. Okay, is everybody with me to this point? This is where it gets fun. Perfect. So if you open your paper and you fold it in half so that your front cover and back cover and your pages are all on the outside, you're going to want your poster on the inside. Basically, my fun little trick is to just push both of your hands together and your pages will kind of separate. They'll make like a little mouth. And then kind of just like push them together until both sides of the paper meet. And then you're going to want to take where your cover is and basically like fold it around to make a little book. Perfect. I can show you that again. So with your content facing one way, fold in half, push together, and then fold your covers around. And then, as you can see, it makes a little book. So that is kind of like the first quick and easy method of binding a zine. Does anybody have any questions, or did you want anything to be gone over again? No. Perfect. Okay. So this is one of my favorites just because it's like so quick and easy, and you can literally like make this on the go if you wanted to. And yeah, this one's a fun one. So for the next one, I'm going to show you the basic saddle stitch. For those who don't have a needle and thread, that is okay. I will kind of go along, like I'll show you the sewing method. It's pretty straightforward. I also have like a digital information zine that I would be more than happy to email everybody with the template. And it kind of like teaches you how to make the zine while you like make the zine that I am teaching you how to make, if that makes any sense at all. So yeah, I will show you the next one. So for that, your template setup is going to be very, very similar. You're going to want to have at least a 1/4 inch margin or a centimeter margin. And then to set up your pages, same kind of thing. You're going to want the same size. For this, you can kind of like, it actually lends itself to more sizes a little easier. So you can do just like a zine that will end up as like a half size paper, or you can do like a 1/4 size zine, or this one is what I call an 1/8 size zine because it's basically splitting your paper into 8 sections. Just for like the template and everything and the tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do one at this size. And like you can even do them smaller or larger. You just kind of have to cater your page setup accordingly. So yeah, basically like once you have your margins drawn out and your pages sectioned off, the biggest thing you're going to want to keep in mind is where you're going to be cutting. So you're going to be cutting your centermost folds, basically. So the horizontal fold and then the second fold here. So you will end up with 4 pieces of paper. And then for this page setup, I always find it's a little confusing. So this is kind of how I've done my template. So you're more than welcome to just like kind of quickly jot down the number sequence because I do not have a fun, helpful trick for this one, unfortunately. So basically, I kind of have the front cover, the back cover, page 11. Oh, I guess I should say this will give you basically 12 or 14 pages, depending if you want to write on like the inner back cover and the inner front cover. So anyway, so your front cover, your back cover, page 11, page 2, and then flipped, you'll get page 4, page 10, page 7, and page 6. And then when you flip it around, basically, you're going to want your front inner cover, obviously, on the back side of your front cover. And same with the back cover. So your back inner cover will be on the reverse of the back cover. And then page-wise, page 12, page 1, page 4, page 9, page 8, and page 5. So just to kind of correspond with what is on the back, if that is helpful, page 12 will be on the back of page 11. Page 1 will be on the back of page 2. Page 4 will be on the back of page 3. Page 9 will be on the back of page 10. Page 8 on the back of 7. And page 5 on the back of 6. So this one is a little more confusing, but I find it's really helpful if you kind of have your template always in front of you when you're making this style of zine. So were there any questions about the template setup before I start actually showing some stitching methods? No? Okay, I'm just going to quickly, so I'm not cutting up my template, I'm going to quickly cut a piece of paper into 4ths. So bear with me here. If you guys don't want to cut up the template you may have made, I would suggest just like grabbing a spare piece of paper like I'm doing and putting in your folds. And then we're going to cut it apart. So like I said, to cut it apart, we're going to want to cut across the middle and then this second fold line. Okay, so if everybody is ready, oh, wanting to check their work. Oh, that is so smart, Jen. I've never noticed that before. I'm going to steal that. That is such a good idea. Awesome. So for those of you who don't see the chat, it says people wanting to check their work will notice that the pairs of numbers will always add up to the same. So 13. So like 9 and 4. That's so smart. Okay. Anyways, now that we have our 4 individual papers, you're gonna always want to make sure that you compile them properly. So I always just do like a little check. I'll fold it before I start sewing and make sure everything is like page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because I have definitely lived and learned from a lot of mistakes and have definitely like compiled pages upside down or backwards or like out of sequence. So bear with me here while I just grab some thread and my needle. So for length of thread, I like to use about 3 times the length of my spine. I find this gives enough that I can tie a knot, and you can always kind of trim if things are a little too long. So you're going to want 3 times the length of your spine. Go. So this is the fun part, trying to thread my needle on camera. Without fail, I usually take forever doing this. For thread, I personally really like to use embroidery thread, mostly because it's just like really colorful. But you can use like a bookbinding thread or just like a basic heavy cotton thread. If you were using a sewing thread, I would suggest just like doubling it up for a little bit of strength. But yeah, I like to use embroidery thread because it's a nice weight and it just adds a little pop of color. It's a little fun. So before we actually start stitching, you're going to want to mark your holes. So for something this size, 3 holes is definitely going to be enough to keep it together. If you are working larger, I would say like the quarter size paper, you're probably okay with 3 holes as well. If you're working larger, I would suggest moving up to 5 or even 9, depending on like what kind of visually you're looking for. With this style of stitch, I always like to work in odd numbers. I find it's just a little easier to kind of grasp that sewing pattern when there's an odd number. So to mark your holes, let's see, pink will show up on camera. I'm not going to grab my ruler just because I don't know that I can coordinate that with this view, but you're going to want to find the center of your paper. And that is going to be your middle hole. And then you're going to want a hole on either side, but make sure you're going to keep it at least a 1/4 inch, or if your paper is larger, a 1/2 inch from the very top and the very bottom. I find if it's any closer to the edge, sometimes when you're pulling, it will rip your holes. So you just want to make sure there's enough paper to kind of like support the stitching. So you're going to want kind of something like this. If you were doing larger, you would do 5. And basically what I like to do to measure that out is I'll go from the center and then I'll mark my top and my bottom hole to make sure I have enough on either side. And then I'll just kind of like continually finding the center of these points. If that makes, hopefully that makes sense. Cool. So with something this thin, I wouldn't worry about poking pilot holes, but if you're working with a zine with significantly more pages or maybe a thicker paper, you may want to do pilot holes before you start sewing, just like for the ease of your fingers. It will definitely like save your fingertips. So basically to do that, I would take either a push pin or if you have an awl and just basically like poke through your pages at the holes or at the marks that you've made. Because this is only 4 pages, I find like a needle will just kind of go through it easy enough. But yeah, so if everyone is ready, I will show you guys how to do the stitch pattern. Okay, so you're going to want to start in your middle hole and you're going to want to start in the center of your book. So go through the center and you'll want to leave a tail that's about 1 inch or 2 long, enough that you'll be able to tie a knot when you're finished. And then from there, it doesn't matter if you go kind of to the top hole or the bottom hole, but you're going to want to sew from the outside back into the center through one of the holes. So basically, it will kind of look like this at this stage. So you'll have your tail, you'll have your fresh thread ready to sew, and along the back of your spine, you'll have like a line of your first stitch. So once you have done that, you're going to want to go back out through the middle hole, basically to kind of create a loop here. There we go. So you've basically kind of created a loop through all of your pages. And then your string will kind of be out through the middle hole, like so. And then from there, you're going to want to kind of repeat the same idea. So you're going to want to go back through your spine on the outside towards the middle of your book, but through that bottom hole this time. There we go. So as you can see, you've basically created a line of stitching down the spine of your book. If you were doing like 5 holes instead, you would just kind of create those loops in an S shape. And then once you hit the bottom, you just repeat it backwards, if that makes sense. So I find it kind of makes, like if you were looking at it this way while you're doing it, it kind of makes like figure 8 shapes. Like that. Hopefully without a visual that makes enough sense. So you will kind of be at this stage here now. So you'll have your thread that is through your needle, the tail we started with, and you're going to want to close this middle gap here. So what I like to do is I'll take my thread and kind of thread it under this first loop to create a little closure without tying a knot quite yet. I find doing this adds just a little bit of security to your pages. If you were to just tie a knot with these 2 threads, I find it doesn't always get a tight fit and your pages tend to like shift around a little more. So I'll just kind of pull it through that first loop. And as you can see, it's kind of closed everything off without tying a knot quite yet. So, oh, sorry, I totally missed a question here. What's the point of the margin on the no-sew one? Basically, you're going to want to leave a margin around the outside so that if you're photocopying or printing, nothing gets cut off. Most printers have what's called a printing margin, and it's basically the space from the edge of the page to where the printer can actually print on the paper. So I kind of just use the margin as like a safety line so none of my information or images get cut off. Yeah, so once we have looped that through, this is where you're going to want to tie your knot. I usually do like a double or a triple knot, but feel free to do whatever makes your little heart happy. Yeah, and then once you've tied your knots, you can trim your tails. I find if I'm doing a lot of zines, like if I'm printing an edition of them, I won't necessarily pay attention to the length of my thread. I'll kind of just like pull a bunch out and then just kind of keep sewing with the same thread. And then I'll just like snip and start as I go. But if you're just doing like one or two off, I find at least 3 times the length of your spine for a thread is a good working length. Yeah, when I make zines, I kind of like to leave a little bit of a tail in here, just because I find, I don't know, it adds like some tactility to it. I like texture, so I'll kind of like trim my threads to about that length. But you are more than welcome to kind of trim them fairly close to the knot. I find you're going to want like a little bit just so it doesn't unravel. But if you're wanting to trim like right to the knot, my little tip is just put like a little dab of white glue on your knot itself and it won't unravel. So then you won't have to worry about like little tails or anything. So yeah, that is the sewing method of zine making. Very basic sewing method of zine making. Did anybody have any questions about that, or did you want me to like show anything again, or how does everyone feel about this one? Cute. I'm seeing like people hold up their little zines. This is great. Perfect. Okay, so I'm looking at my time and we have about 20-ish minutes. Did you want me to go over the accordion style, or would you like to just jump into like actually making some zine content? Does anybody have a preference? I'm getting intrigued, blank stares. Oh, perfect. I'd like to know how to do content. Wonderful. Let's jump in with content then. So the wonderful thing about zines, oh, someone is saying they'd like to see the accordion style. Okay, what I can do is do like a very, very brief how-to of the accordion, and then we can jump into content. So basically with the accordion, you're going to want a long, skinny rectangle. So what I usually do is I'll just kind of take my paper, fold it in half, what we like to call hot dog method or landscape method. And then I would cut it because you're not going to want things to be too bulky because it will kind of buckle when you fold it. So I had to grab like the most awkward scissors in my stash, my little like shears here. So my line is super uneven. But once you have kind of your long skinny rectangle, you're going to want to think about how wide you would like your pages. Because from there you will have to kind of measure out accordingly. So if you're saying, let's see, because standard paper is 11 inches this way, like, so it'll be 11 inches. So if you say you want 2-inch wide pages, oh, where did my pencil go? You'll want to measure out, basically measure out your pages, and then those will be your fold lines. Bear with me here. I find this method takes a little more trial and error when you're measuring, just because I tend to I'm not great with numbers, so I find I like get lost in my head when I'm trying to figure out numbers. But basically, you're just going to want to like section off as to how many or how wide your page is going to be and how many pages you're looking for. And then you'll just accordion fold along those pages. So the first one, you're going to want to fold inwards along that line. And then instead of folding like this again, you're going to want to fold the opposite way, basically to create like a zigzag fold. So that you'll end up with something kind of like that. And then just kind of continue that process along your whole page. I find with this method, a thinner paper tends to work a little nicer. I find it's easier to get like a straighter and crisper fold. That being said, you definitely can use something like cardstock. You just kind of have to be a little more like, take your time with it, if that, yeah. So once you have all of your folds in, with your extra little tail, you can either trim that off if this is how many pages you were wanting, or what you can do is laminate 2 pages together. This is kind of where I get like lost in the math a little bit, but basically you would take your other piece of paper, do the exact same thing, and then glue the 2 together to kind of create like one really long sheet of paper. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Yeah. Or you could even like glue them together before you start and then just worry about like where the folds fall from there. But yeah, that is kind of like the very easy breezy basic method of an accordion fold. The fun thing is you can kind of create like covers out of cardstock and just like cut a square, or even cardboard. Cardboard makes really good covers because it's a little stiffer. And then just basically like sandwich 2 rectangles on either side, and it creates kind of like a hard little cover. Yeah, so that is an accordion fold. And I guess we will jump into content now. So the fun thing about zines is they can literally be about anything you want. I have zines. I'll pull out some of my samples again. Like for example, this zine here is an art zine. So it's literally just image based. There's no text. There's no like storyline, and it unfolds into this really cool poster. And then you can also have like this one is a poetry based zine. So you can have like written word, you can have just images, like they can be comics, they can be informational. Like that's the joy of zines, is it can literally be anything. I find that also can sometimes be a little daunting when you're like, oh my gosh, I have so much freedom. What the heck am I going to make a zine about? So I kind of like to work with prompts. So for example, this workshop is called Queer Zine Making. So I would kind of think about prompts that kind of relate to a topic. So something for me might be like my bisexual journey, or my queer experience, or it could be, let's write some poetry about queerness. Or let's do some collages that kind of relate to my story and my queerness, or just queerness in general, and kind of go from there. Yeah, so I often will keep, like, I always have a notebook with me, and I kind of like to just keep like running prompt lists. So if I have like an idea, or I'll see something maybe and I'll be like, oh, that's really cool. Like the color indigo is feeling really inspiring today. Let's write that on my prompt list. So when I'm feeling really stuck, I'll kind of like reference back to my overarching prompt list and be like, what sticks out to me today? But yeah, is there any questions you guys had about like creating content, or would you like me to come up with some more prompts and you guys can kind of like work from there, or anything like that? Oh, okay. So someone is saying prompts, please. Let's see. I'm gonna plug my zine archive again, but yeah, I'm gonna say let's make a prompt around the conference. What a fun one would kind of be like your experience with the conference, and like maybe do a comic about your experience and like what workshops you've attended and what you've learned in these workshops, and people you may have met, or like talks you've heard. And then something cool about that is it kind of becomes like a little keepsake of the day. So you're documenting like your journey through this conference and your experience with this and how it's making you feel, and stuff like that. Hopefully I'm not like rambling too much. I tend to like get a little flourishy sometimes with language, but yeah, I personally really love kind of documentation type zines where it's like, even if it's just, this is what I did today. I always find that type of stuff very charming and interesting, and like worth noting down, because life is exciting and it's always fun to look back and be like, oh, I remember this day, this is what I did, and oh yeah, that conference, this is what I learned, and this is who talked, and that kind of thing. I also really like using collage in zines. I feel like you can start very vague, but like once you kind of get into actually collaging, I find you find a directive very quickly. And as a visual artist, it's kind of really fun to like merge those two things, something that would be a little more traditionally word-based with something very visual based. So yeah, like I said, zines don't have to be just text. They don't have to be just images. It's nice when things are kind of merged together and encompass both. But yeah, I say, yeah, today's prompt, let's do like about the conference and your experience with it, and things you've learned and your journey through and how you found this and all that fun stuff. What are the most interesting? Oh my gosh, I have seen so many things. I have like a huge zine collection. If you haven't noticed, I'm very passionate about zines. I think they're great. Like I have a ton of comic-based zines that are really cool. I really like stuff that is hand printed. So let's see. In my tiny little sample pile, this one, for example, a friend of mine did, and it's all screen printed. So instead of like photocopied, like she actually like hand printed each zine. Oops. And then this one too, I believe is a lino cut. So it's another printmaking method. So each is like hand printed. I find stuff like this to be super interesting, and I think it's probably because I have the fine art background. Oh, hold on, I'm seeing some more stuff in the chat. Bear with me. These are great. Oh, I love this. I also love like doing these workshops because everyone like bounces ideas off of everyone else, and it's so fun. I think talking through your ideas also like helps other people, if that makes sense. But yeah, like zines are cool. Zines are great. I have some really good ones that are like kind of a glimpse into like feminist history, which are always super fun because it kind of calls back to like the Riot Girl era, and it like, I don't know, feels like the true roots of zines for me. But yeah, like I have a lot to pull from, so it's hard to be like these are some of the most interesting ones. Oh, I love the timeline idea. That is really fun, and that would work really well with like the accordion style. Something else fun is like you can kind of gear your binding style to the content you're doing as well. The timeline would also work really cool with like a poster style, because you could do like a snaking timeline as your poster. Yeah, that's great. I love that. I also really like zines that are collaborative. Going back to like some interesting zines that I have or have seen. Yeah, like compiling multiple people's work into a zine is always a ton of fun, and I love like participating in stuff like that because it kind of gives you a glimpse into like other people's style and thoughts and feelings, and you may be working under the same theme, but like everything is always so different. Yeah, that's like the wonderful thing about zines is even if you're given the same exact prompt list, you're going to like create such drastically different work. So yeah, does anyone else have any final questions? We're coming up to the end of our time, but I'm more than happy to like stick around after a little bit if you guys have questions or comments or want to chat more.
I just wanted to say it was so lovely doing something creative. I feel like I've stared at a screen all day, and not that it's not been enjoyable, because I have enjoyed listening to everyone's presentations and talking to everyone, but it was just so nice to look at paper instead of at a screen. And I think if we ever have an in-person conference, it would be amazing to do a 2 or 3 hour workshop and everyone gets to make zines.
Oh, absolutely. I want to say thank you for having me, and thank you for like coming out, because I always love like being able to share this passion of mine with everybody. Yeah, an in-person workshop would be so fun. I find like the in-person aspect definitely like really harbors creativity, and it gets everyone like really working on stuff, which is fun. But yeah, I hope everyone had a good time, because I had a blast. This was lovely. It's always nice to like meet new people and connect in ways, even if it's like through a screen. It's always fun to expand that way. Before we go though, for anyone who may have joined before or after I put information in the chat, I'll pop it in here one more time. And like I said, if you have questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, please feel free to reach out. I'm always open to like growing as someone who puts on workshops. So if you have feedback, I would love to hear it. And yeah, submissions for the Queer Zine Archive are open. If you have questions about that, please feel free to email me or DM me on Instagram, whatever your preference is. Let me pop the info down here. So submissions, oh my gosh, wait, I can't type and talk at the same time. I'm like can't multi-focus. Sorry guys, bear with me here. So it is a very small operation. It's a pretty fresh operation. So it is very like low key. I take email submissions of digital zines, or if you're comfortable like mailing something, I definitely take physical copies as well. Unfortunately, I'm at a stage where I cannot provide compensation, but hopefully like as this project grows, that will become a possibility. So the archive is open to anybody. I currently in my studio just have like the physical archive, and I'm working on putting a digital archive as well, whether that be on a website or right now it's on Instagram, which is kind of like, it's been a little bit of a dead zone because this year's has been a little crazy for me. But ideally, I'd love to like have a website where people can just like browse at will. But yeah, I kind of want to make it as open and as accessible as possible because I think that's important. And you know, sharing stories and archiving stories is something that like is interesting, but also like super important because marginalized voices tend to get overlooked. But yeah, I can definitely like give you the more official spiel if you send me an email. I'm also working on like a Google form for submissions. So yeah. In the meantime, oh shoot, I spelled the Instagram wrong. So it's Queer Zine Archive, not with an R at the end. My bad. But yeah, feel free to reach out. So queerzinearchive@gmail.com or on Instagram, queerzinearchive or that glitter chick. So yeah, I'm so happy everyone could join. Thank you. And I hope you guys had fun. So
Thank you so much, Alyssa. That was so enjoyable. And I've tweeted about it with your Instagram handle, so hopefully people can find you through that.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, I'll stick around for a few more minutes if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, but we have reached 1 o'clock and I know there's a ton of other like amazing programming going on. So yeah, feel free to filter out as you see fit. But okay. Did either of you have any questions or comments, concerns? Okay, if not, I think I'm going to end it here. Thanks again for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed, and it was lovely to meet everybody.